Hello, I'm Andrew Gentile.
And I'm Arianna.
And you're listening. Wait. Hold on. Stop the presses. Ariana's back?
What?
Yes. Ariana, you've been on hiatus. Congratulations. Welcome back.
For too long hiatus, so long.
Too long. We are so happy to have you back. And you're listening to Behind the Flicks. Our guest today is powerhouse producer Tracy Keshek, who also co founded the production company Red Siren Entertainment. Tracy, welcome to Behind the Flicks.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks to you. This is the tired $1 million question. I'm sure you've heard it a million times before. How did you get into filmmaking?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
Um,
going there.
you're going there. Okay. I feel like I've told this story a million times, but I actually didn't have any aspirations to be a filmmaker originally. I planned on being a photographer. That was my goal when I was in high school. And once I got into college, I started to kind of lose that drive. So I took a break from everything. And then I somehow, a few years later, found myself in talent management. So I was representing actors, and I still know behind the camera, aspirations. It wasn't even, in my headspace. And it was through one of the actors that I represented that I started producing. She had a lot of really cool content ideas, and it was like, let's do this. So we kind of that was my film school essentially. It was like we're just the two of us just got together. We put it all together. It was a Western on top of it, which like talk about challenging, right? So you're talking about a period piece and all these elements and a huge cast and crew and a whole Western town and everything. So we just took like 6 weeks. We put it all together. We somehow came up with the money to do it, by some miracle. And we ended up, producing, that was my first, project that I had ever done. And, you kind of stand there going, how did I get here? What, it's one of those weird things where it's kind of a blur, but it wasn't until I saw the first footage, and it was actually when we had wrapped and we were driving back to LA. The editor put the footage up, and I fell in love with it. I thought, wow, like you go through all of this stuff, all of these elements that you have to put together, and now you're watching it. Just what was an idea is now right there, and it took all of these amazing people to kind of come together and make it happen. And I went, nope, this is it. This is what I want to do. It kind of hit me in that moment. So after that, I mean, I was still doing management, but I kind of slowly started transitioning into full-time producing, and it was just kind of one project after another. It was small stuff like shorts, music videos, web series, things like that, to kind of learn on the fly and stuff. And then here I am. So I'm still going. So yeah. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, like you don't want to do anything else, so I'm lucky enough to have that, for as challenging as this job is, or this career path is, I should say, because it's not easy, especially in the independent world, especially with everything we've been through, COVID and strikes and everything. So still love it. So that's a good thing, right?
What a great story. What a great story.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is a total side tangent, but were there horses in the Western?
There
Oh God, that's
there were
that's where my
many
that's where my head
horses.
went to immediately. Like the
There
Western
were
town, I can imagine
Yes.
the set period costumes. There were
Hmm.
actual horses you had to manage.
Oh yeah, we had, all in all, I think it was 4 or 5 horses.
No.
Yeah. We got very lucky. We had a great, the guy that brought, the three of the last ones. He was awesome. But it was a challenge because I had never dealt with horses. I didn't grow up with horses, so it was kind of, one of them was, he was wild, and my business partner who wrote the project, she was on the horse, she was in the project, and barreling down the main street and around the corner, and I'm like, God, don't fly off the horse, so it's it's like it was an event. It was a whole adventure that we were on, but everything turned out okay, so it was good.
Okay. Okay. No animals were harmed in the making of that film. That's
No,
good.
never. I've
Okay, good.
done a few projects with animals. I love animals. I
Yeah.
have a dog. She's not here right now because otherwise you'd hear a lot of howling in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's really important to me that animals and kids are very well protected on set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a side tangent, just flow of conversation. But have you ever heard the story about Clint Eastwood and how he like tells the actors to go?
Yeah.
No.
So I don't know the exact story because it's something I've watched like once upon a time a million times ago. I think it was Matt Damon. talking about how when Clint Eastwood says action, it's like very subtle and
Mm.
quiet. And it was from his times doing westerns in his younger days where he'd be on a horse and the director would make like this big production action and it would spook the horses and they'd have to constantly reset because of this big ordeal to call action.
Oh no.
And I was like, I wonder if that happens everywhere.
I guess it depends on how well trained the horses are and the handlers. And then, I think the energy, because they seem to be very responsive to the energy of people around them. So we were
Yeah.
fortunate where our horses we didn't have a very loud, well, actually, it was a very long time ago, guys. So bear with me. It was over 10 years ago that this happened. So, but I don't remember them getting spooked by a call of action, thankfully.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good.
But I
That's
didn't know
good.
that story. I just learned something new today.
Well, I mean, there's a whole abyss of wonderful stories about all like the seasoned directors, actors that are in
Oh yeah.
the public eye these days, and I love that they've built up over so much time. I mean, I'm sure that story wasn't something that was talked about when he was young and experiencing it, but now he gets to tell them through all of the people he's made an impression on. So
Yeah.
I love that. I love that they get carried that way. And you've got 10 years for us to explore.
Over actually. Try not to date myself over here. But yeah, it's been a
Oh,
while, so
awesome.
Um,
You've earned it.
M- Matt Damon, especially if you ever look up Matt Damon Hollywood stories, he just has a ton of stories like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, he is a great source,
that's
a
part
great
of it.
firsthand source.
It's that's part of it. Like I think you every project is an adventure, and
Right.
even all the in between, with the people you meet in the meetings, it's like watching an episode of Entourage sometimes.
Right.
It's it's too funny, because I think everybody's got a story, everybody's got like some craziness that they went through, and I mean, while you're going through it, it's not too funny, but once you get out of it, then you kind of laugh and go, "Oh my God, like what is
We
this?"
really did that.
Yeah,
What were we thinking?
right,
Right.
exactly.
There are misconceptions about what a producer's role is in filmmaking. Like everybody knows what a writer does, everybody knows what an actor does. Tracy, what does a producer do?
Ooh, that is a good question. There are so many different types of producers. There are producers that come in for little things here and there. There are producers that are there from start to finish. So, then there's different producer, executive producer, co-producer, associate. There's all these things. So in general, I can only speak from my experience. I'm typically the type, if it's through my company, I'm there from script to delivery, the whole way through. If I'm freelancing on someone else's project, it depends on when they bring me in. They could bring me in strictly for production. So I'm handling pre-production, and then the whole shoot and everything like that. So it just depends really. I mean, you have producers that package and then they're not a part of production aspect. You've got some that raise the financing. So there's so many things that a producer can do. And there's these creative producing, there's just, I mean, there should be like a whole seminar on all of the different producers and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, from my experience, that's kind of the scope of what I do. I kind of do everything. I'm involved from start to finish.
Gotcha, gotcha. So it could range from everything to helping raise financing to overseeing pre-production to the
Yeah.
whole shebang.
Oh yeah, attaching actors. I mean,
Yeah.
even there's a project that we have right now. We have the life rights to someone's story, and
Oh
it's
wow.
finding the writer. It's working with them on the script, and then once you get that going, then you're preparing all the packaging materials and the pitches and all that stuff, and then you're trying to get actors attached. And this is before you approach any financing. Usually, you want to make the pitch
Right.
attractive, seeking out distribution, pre-sales, financing, all that stuff before you even start pre-production. Um, so yeah, there's a lot to it. It really just depends. I mean, some people are great on set producers. Some people don't even want to be on set. So it just depends on the person, I think, and what role they're specifically hired for.
To me, it's like very exciting because you see the content, most people see final products,
Hmm.
and you don't really get curious about what's going on behind the scenes until you see something that displays it, like a behind the scenes or an interview of people that didn't or weren't just acting in the movie. And I don't know, like interviewing or having not really interviewing, talking about film with someone like you, like and we always explore these fun facts that are all behind the scenes facts, but having your insight and experience is I'm getting so excited to hear just like your perception of films and the when you watch a film, what your mind goes through in terms of how it was built and the kind probably the exploration you have in view of it is probably so different than um, somebody that it maybe only sees one aspect of a film or pays close attention to something specific. Not that that doesn't have any value, but for me personally, that I have a dream of like wanting to learn how to produce.
Mhm.
I'm like especially excited that you're here. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think it's funny because I recently thought of this. Before I ever started filmmaking, I completely just immersed myself in the film. I wasn't looking, I mean, maybe a little bit as a, with a background in photography, I was in that aspect, looking at the shots and everything. And but I wasn't taking it apart too much. And there's a beauty in that because you can just get lost in the story and the visuals and everything.
It's
Now
the intention for most, right? That's what you want people to do when they
Right,
consume it. Yeah.
exactly. Like you it's like an hour and a half, 2 hour escape, you hope, in a good way, not in a, oh God, why did
Yeah.
I watch this way? But but now, yeah, now I'm kind of looking at what location is that, where did they shoot that? I'm looking at the acting, I'm looking at the shots and the wardrobe. I mean, you're looking at every aspect of it, I think once you start becoming a filmmaker. And now I know that depending on your role, if you're a director or DP or, or wardrobe or art, you're going to you're going to might focus on those things. But I guess it just depends on the person, but
Yeah.
I'm taking it apart a little bit, but then I catch myself and I'm like, no, 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 don't do that. Like when you watch it again, do that. Just enjoy it, So sometimes
Yeah.
I have to remind myself to not look at it from that perspective.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, there's probably a part fraction of this that has ruined some movies for you, at least the initial consuming of them.
Well, if I remind myself to just kind of watch it, then I'm good.
Yeah.
And I think in a way it's kind of added a little bit more appreciation because you understand how much goes into the process, how much money it takes in certain cases, it's just depending on the type
Yeah.
of project you're trying to do.
Yeah.
You do appreciate it a little bit more. There's movies that I've watched that have had amazing acting and I just I'm like god if I would just want to sit there at Video Village and watch this come together because I do have
Yeah.
I love great actors. I admire their ability and what they can translate
Yeah.
on screen. And when you
Yeah.
see that magic kind of happen, everything come together with this great shot and this great acting and everything is just flowing, it's a really cool feeling, especially if you get to be on
Yeah.
set watching that happen.
Yeah. Has it become easier or harder to like criticize films with the because like for instance like I'm a waitress in my day job. And so having the experience of what it is to serve a table when I go to other restaurants and I
Mhm.
go and I have that experience, I tend to I for the most part it's double-edged because I tend to have way more sympathy for what they go through and also it's sometimes paired with more judgment depending on what I'm
Yeah.
observing. So so if I'd never
Yeah.
had that experience, it would be different. So I'm wondering like you knowing how all the puzzle pieces and what it takes to fit them all together when you watch a film is sometimes like do those criticisms or that analyzation is it easier or harder on the creatives on the other side?
Harder for them, you mean, or harder for me to kind of pass
Hard,
that judgment? Or
yeah,
Harder
yeah,
on them, maybe.
harder on them.
oh, harder on them.
Yeah.
I think I'm more of, I'm not going, oh, that's shit. I'm not that person. I'm just kind of
No.
going, why did they make that decision? I'm trying to understand the why. And I
Yeah.
know sometimes it just comes down to this is what you have to work with, whether you have a minimal budget or the type of people that you put together, maybe everybody wasn't the right fit, maybe they were, maybe the weather was a problem, maybe time was a problem. I mean, there's so many things that can interfere with getting the shot that you need or the look that you need. And, it's
Yeah.
funny because I've looked at all the projects that I started and what I envisioned originally is not it's never what you end up with. Usually it's like, oh, I thought it was going to look this way, but it looked that way, but that's just my vision. It's not the collective vision of everybody coming together. So it changes as it goes along, and you're dealing with all of these
Yeah.
unforeseen things. And especially in producing, your role primarily is a problem solver. You're trying to help everybody be more successful at their jobs, and we're not always perfect. I mean, every set I learn on, I don't know everything. I would never assume to know everything about producing. I feel like hopefully I have this career for a long time, and when I'm elderly and still trying to produce, I'll learn something new then, so because
Yeah.
it's changing. There's always a new scenario, something different that you learn. So I think I'm more in the sense of in terms of critiquing, I'm more, wondering why they did things a certain way, or what were they up against, or what budget did they have, or so I'm trying to learn as I go as well. I mean,
Yeah.
there's things that I like and I don't like, but
Yeah.
when you have the perspective of, just like you said, like if you're waitressing and you're going and watching someone else do it, what goes into that, in every single job, if you're doing it, all of the pitfalls and the difficulties and the challenges that you come up against. And you're kind of, I'm empathetic to that,
Yeah.
I get it. So I'm trying not to be too like, oh, wow, what's that? It's more like,
It's,
okay,
it
how
sounds
can I
like it's,
learn from that,
yeah, like it's deepened your curiosity
Yes,
almost. Yeah.
exactly.
I
I'll
love
speak
it.
for myself. I'm way harder on people who do bad jobs in filmmaking. Like sometimes, like
That's fair.
I remember when I was a kid, I used to sometimes go to the Oscar nominated shorts. Like they sometimes have those screenings, like the post package screenings, and I'm like, I've made better films than that.
That's good. That's valid as well. We need that too. It can't just,
Hmm.
I think that makes you, it pushes you to do better too.
Yeah.
That's
Depending on
true.
where you put the energy though, it could be just, there's people that'll critique and they just want to like slam like stuff down. Oh, that
Yeah.
sucks. Oh, and then they never do anything with
Yeah.
it, versus like, no, I don't like that. I'm going to do it better. I'm going to do it this way. I think that
Yeah.
depends on what direction you go, with that energy.
I try to have the mentality of, well, if I'm so smart, I'll try to do it better. I try to do that. Don't always succeed, but it's the trying that counts. Probably, maybe, I don't know.
Yes.
So Tracy, I do have more questions for you, but Arianna, can we please get a review of this episode's film?
Oh boy. Okay. Because before this, I never really, I mean, I've picked Tracy's brain plenty on films and how they're made and why she loves films, but I didn't know like your genre preferences at all. So when this came through, to me it felt very like Andrew. This is the kind of films that I would think that Andrew would send to me as well, which I felt kind of endeared about that you would send something like this in. But so for the viewers, we're doing Bowfinger today, which reading the title, I went, oh boy, what is this about? I had no idea, never heard of it. But it's starring Steve Martin and Eddie Murphy and a whole other cast of people that everybody knows. And in short, it's an aged film production studio owner. I think so. I don't think that's ever explicitly said, but he owns his own filmmaking company, and he wants to make, and he doesn't have any money. He hasn't made a film in a while. Hollywood's forgotten about him because he's old, and according to him, and he gets a script from a friend that wrote it in 12 days, and he's the greatest thing he's ever read, and he's going to find a way to make this movie. And the only way to make it matter is to enlist the talents of the Hollywood's current superstar, played by Eddie Murphy, who is a rather paranoid, paranoid individual who really wants to make a mark in Hollywood by doing something different, I think. And he goes to get him in this movie and he says no. So the solution to this is to film him without him knowing and make a whole movie with him as the star, and he's got no idea he's in a movie. If I had to review this and give it a grade, I would actually give this like a solid A. I feel like it did everything it wanted to do very well. It wasn't too long. I feel like it was just the right amount of time. It didn't spend more time on things than it didn't have to. All of the laughs, like they landed. I thought Eddie Murphy was, I mean, we've all seen Eddie Murphy in movies, and I thought he was fantastic in this, playing that like paranoid. How he grounded that character is amazing to me. I don't know how he did it, but he's so endearing the whole time because he's not like he's not an ass, really. Which is what you'd expect as like if you were to typecast a Hollywood superstar that can't be bothered with anybody. You know, to him he's got reasons why he's saying no and throwing these fits, and they're not. I mean, they're ridiculous, but they're not invalid. So I don't. But Steve Martin's writing in this I thought was excellent, and I don't know how much of it was improvised, but I thought Eddie Murphy did wonderful as well. And the tropes that they play with in Hollywood, you know, being an older person trying to make a movie that sounds ridiculous to everybody else, but you're really passionate and you believe it, and then it ends up working on the end by some miracles that take place. I mean, to me, it's like a Hollywood satirical fairy tale, which was really fun to watch.
Why did you choose Bowfinger for this episode?
Well, I love a good story about Hollywood. I love anything that anything related to working in the industry. It amuses me so much. And this was hard, guys, because you've done a lot of movies actually on your podcast that I like, like Back to the Future, Pirates of the Caribbean. I was like, oh, those are already taken. So I was thinking, I'm like, what could I do? So I was making this list, and it was my mom actually, because my mom is so funny. I call her my executive producer. She's awesome. She knows all my stories. We can talk about, all these aspects of the, dynamics of film and Hollywood and working here and stuff like that. So we'll watch stuff like that together. She actually was the person that told me about Bowfinger. She's like, "Have you seen this?" And I was like, "No, what is this?" And I'm watching it going, "Oh my God." Like, this is the insanity of indie filmmaking, and it just amused me so much. And then when I was trying to figure out what movie, to suggest, she reminded me of this, and I went, "Oh, perfect. Okay, this is great." So yeah, I do have a soft spot for Hollywood stories. I love it.
I love this came from your mom.
Yeah.
It's
She
so cute.
she's good. She comes up with really good stuff.
Well, one of the things I love is that Frank Oz directed this movie. Miss Piggy, Fozzie Bear, Yoda were all played by Frank Oz. So he directed this movie. And he also previously directed Steve Martin in Little Shop of Horrors and Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. So, uh,
What?
yeah, he's incredible. Yeah,
That's awesome.
I know, right?
He directed Little Shop of Horrors?
He directed the '80s Little Shop of Horrors. Yeah,
That's really cool.
I know, right?
Yes. I didn't
Yeah,
I did we didn't do Little Shop of Horrors, did
we
we?
have not done
Have
Little
we?
Shop of Horrors. No.
I must have watched it for purposes of something else. But I just saw that film for the first time like maybe a year ago. And I had
Mhm.
no idea Steve Martin was in it until I watched it, and then the character he plays is so absurd.
I haven't seen it yet, so I should see it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you got one on me. So uh,
It's about time,
it's
people. It's
about time.
about time.
Um, I've seen a number of films, so Ariana is always excited when she sees a film like a film that I haven't seen. I don't understand. I haven't seen that many films, so um, okay.
So he's a big fat fibber. Fibber.
Much like the facts I'm about to tell. I'm a big fat fibber. So when Steve Martin wrote Bowfinger, he wrote it, by the way.
Mhm.
Just for our listeners. He initially thought of Keanu Reeves to play Kit Ramsey, like a
Yes,
Keanu
I
Reeves
just heard
type.
about this.
Yeah. But Brian Grazer, the producer, suggested Eddie Murphy. So and Steve Martin was like,
Oh.
"Yeah, absolutely."
Hey, those
Yeah,
producers, they know what they're doing.
exactly.
We don't always know what we're doing.
On occasion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Speaking
this
of,
would not have been the same as
it would
with
not have
Keanu.
been the
Go
same.
ahead.
No,
No.
I mean, God bless Keanu Reeves, but that would have been a
Yeah.
different movie.
Oh, totally.
Oh my.
I actually listened to the audio commentary to Bowfinger with Frank Oz. It's really fascinating because it talks about he just talks all the whole time about how much of this film is just like reshoots and re-editing and test previews. Like for example, there's a scene like the scene where Steve Martin's explaining his plan to like get the shots of Eddie Murphy without him knowing. He There's a cut when he's like getting the box down, and then
Hmm.
on the audio commentary, Frank Oz snaps his fingers and said, "Okay, so this is 6 months later where we filmed the rest of the scene." And then when I snap my fingers again, we're back to the original shoot. And then he snaps his fingers and they're back to the original shoot. So and they had to know, and apparently there's like a I didn't know this actually. This is apparently what professional productions do, and I'm sure Tracy knows this. They know every single lighting setup and what millimeter lens they used for each shot. You see that's how low budget I am. I didn't know that they did that, and so they note the lighting setup so that 6 months later when they need to go back to reshoot something, they have the exact they have the exact notes on how to do it to make it look seamless.
Yeah.
Because they literally broke down that set and then they had to rebuild it before after test audiences were confused. So that's a lot of filmmaking in Hollywood. I wouldn't know. I don't have that much money. Um,
One day you will.
Yeah.
Thank you. I
Keep
appreciate
going.
that. I will.
You
Trust
never
me.
know.
Um, I mean, Tracy, have you ever had that situation where like you've had to go back and shoot something 6 months later based on clarity or something like that?
Not in my
Okay.
previous projects. I just experienced this though.
Okay.
That
Okay.
recently. Yeah.
Okay.
So that see, like there's something new, well, I think for me and from the producing standpoint, if I'm raising the money, I'm very cautious about that money that I'm given, to do the project. So it's very important to me that we get it all. And sometimes, if you exhaust all the money, you get what you get. And if there is
Yeah.
no, I don't ever want to go back asking, you know, financiers for more money. It's like, you're trusting me to do this job. I need to get it done within this
Yeah.
budget. But sometimes that's not always the case. You're up against a lot of different elements. So I've been fortunate that we have gotten everything. And recently I just experienced this on a different set for a different project. So yeah, so there will be pickups possibly for this other project. So yeah, like I said, you learn something new on every set, or you experience something new on every set that maybe you hadn't before, but yeah, that's common.
But I think it's pretty impressive that in over 10 years of filmmaking, you're just now experiencing the impact of having to go back and reshoot something, to an extent.
I've been
That says a
lucky.
lot about how much you've planned and committed to the process to get everything as close to complete on the first go round.
Yeah, thank you. I do try because I do feel the pressure of the money. It's really important to me. It's like if I was giving somebody, all of my money to go make something, you want that person to respect that investment as much as is possible. So I'm kind of in the middle where I have to protect the production, but also protect the money, the financier. So that balancing act it can be challenging because you're dealing with so many elements and stuff. So I've really tried to be like, okay, this is, if something's not working, we got to move on. We got to get it. We got to, in a hopefully not in an overbearing tyrant way, but that's of like, we have to make sure that, we take care of this. So, I've been lucky, I would say, that it's worked out so far. But the more you do, the more you're going to come across different things. And, it depends on your budget, it depends on how much and what type of content you're trying to do within that money. So I think being conscious of, what am I trying to pull off for X amount of dollars? That's really important too. So if you're trying to do too much with too little, then you can kind of trip yourself up a little bit, I think. But if you have a good perspective, but then again, like I said, like there's so many elements that go into filmmaking. There's so many things that you can't foresee that could happen. So, I will just say I've been lucky, so, and that's just been luck. It's not, anything else. I mean, I would think.
You're based in LA.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm trying to do a not rough transition to this next fact, so I'm going to use LA as that fact, as that transition. An example of a reshoot was the opening credits scene. Initially, there was a helicopter montage over the affluent neighborhoods of LA that would then zero in on Bowfinger's house. Like it was going to transition from Beverly Hills to more impoverished neighborhoods, and then Bowfinger's house until we get into Bowfinger. They reshot that because Frank Oz felt that pacing wise, it was more important to get to know the characters, and so we end up with the opening credits scene now that we have now, where Bowfinger gets to, like, talks to people over the phone after reading the script. So it's really fascinating how again, just how much of the filmmaking process is okay. That didn't work, so we're going to change this with the writer. So I love that.
Yeah. I mean, you could think that you have everything, you're shooting what's in the script and then you're watching it in the edit and you're like, something's missing. We don't have enough. We're not, something, we need to do something different or we need to add. And then you would go back and do pickups to kind of fill in those spaces. So that makes total sense.
It sounds like you really have to commit to not having too much of an ego when you're making a film. Because I mean, I've got so small of amount of experience, but I could imagine that if I put the effort into writing something that I felt really passionate about, I loved every second of it, I got a final product, right? And then you
Mhm.
go to film it and, X, Y, and Z just doesn't work. You watch it and you're like, whoa, that wasn't the feeling or anything that I had intended with my
Yeah.
perfect script. Well, let's just chuck out those pieces and redo them. Like I can imagine why sometimes some of these films that we see end up maybe a little subpar, probably because there's a bit of ego in there, and they're like, "No, do it the way I want to do it." It's like, "Well, it didn't work, or it doesn't feel right," and they maybe just don't let them change it the way that they should.
Yeah. That's hard, it's I think you need a little bit of ego, to kind of,
Mhm.
so that you have that drive to kind of create that art and get it, deliver it. But I think too, like having too much is to the detriment of a project because it's not about you, regardless of what your role is, especially if you have an above the line role like a producer, director, writer, as much as you're usually the highest paid person on the set, and usually there's a lot of ego there. I don't feel that there should be because that's a role where you're leading, you're kind of bringing everybody together and it's not about us. It's about the collective, it's about the story, it's about, the collective of the group coming together, the crew, because I mean, I'm a big fan of my PAs, for example, because they save us because if we didn't have PAs, every department head would have to stop everything they're doing like multiple times a day to go run and pick up stuff or take care of the small thing like the trash and the setting up all the crafty and the production and all of the things that they do, so I adore them because they're saving us. They're kind of holding us up, and even though they're the lowest paid on the crew, they're really, so I think you have to be appreciative of every single person that agrees to come onto this set and work with you. That's a gift. Especially if you're the director, you're the captain of the ship, like that's an awesome everybody looks to the director in film. Nobody usually looks to the producers, which is fine with me because I'm not interested in like you guys take the attention. I'm good. I just want to put a film together and watch it, go
Yeah.
out there and see that work that we all made together. But I think if you can kind of put your ego aside and really enjoy the process and enjoy the people that, are coming together to make this really cool thing. Because I mean, look what we get to do. I've done the 9 to 5.
Yeah.
I've had that job. I had it for a long time. And it's this, you're doing the same thing every day. And that's no disrespect to that, because we all need to make money. We all have to keep a roof over our heads. So that's why I feel even more fortunate to be able to do this job because we get to go play every day. Essentially, we're creating art, which to me, I was always an art, kid. So, it's like it's a great thing. So to kind of have that ego where it's like, oh, it's all about me, and no, it tarnishes the whole process, I think, and it makes it not enjoyable, because we are working long hours. You're talking about 12 to 14 hours from the time you're driving to set and driving home and all of the stuff that you're doing. It's exhausting. You don't really have a life Monday through Friday, and then you're spending Saturday and Sunday trying to recover. It's to just go back the next week and do it all over again. So I think you should have an appreciation for it. And I think the more appreciation you have, it kind of reflects itself in the art, because you see everybody kind of
Mhm.
coming to work. And even though everybody's exhausted, they feel, you've got a good rapport, people, you're making each other laugh and you're kind of being productive together and helping each other out. So I think that is you can kind of see that reflected on the screen sometimes, you know. But again, if you've got $200 million for a film, you're going to see the $200 million for the film. It's going to look good, but you know, you
Or at
you
least it better look good.
Hmm?
Or at least it better look good.
It better look good. Yeah, exactly. It better look good for $200 million.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Can you go
So,
consult these executives that make all of
oh
these
God.
like big films and teach them a thing or two about caring more about the story and
Oh,
their
that's
crews and
funny.
everything else? They could be a big help.
Oh God, I would hope so, but yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, they're doing pretty well financially, so.
Yeah.
But Arianna, we need Good Guy v Bad Guy 2 Lazyverse coming next week. That's the next superhero movie we need.
Yeah.
No, but speaking as a somebody who tries to be a writer director, I feel I totally agree with you. I do kind of have to have a bit of an ego for me to gather everybody and say, okay, everybody, you're going to dedicate time to my idea. You
Yeah.
know, all your time and resources. I'm going to make you get up in the morning, drive somewhere. Yeah, I also want to be flexible because I totally recognize I'm working with world class artists and technicians, and I hope they feel appreciated.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what it's about. It's about the showing the appreciation to the people that are, you know, everybody's coming together to bring your project to life, you
Oh,
know.
absolutely.
And that's a gift, you know. So it's kind of like, and you know, especially when you don't have any money to pull it off and you're relying on favors, and you know, you have friends that are coming to the table, and it's just, I mean, that's an amazing thing, you know. And then you could handle it one way where you could be a complete tyrant on set and you could be yelling at everybody because it's not perfect exactly the way you want it. It's kind of like, well, you know, you have to have your realistic expectations based on what you're asking for, what resources you have. So, you know, I think the more appreciation you show people, the more they're like, okay, yeah, I do want to be here. I do want to help out. And it just shows. It just shows in the way that you all work together and the experience that you have.
Speaking of world class artists, you watch Structure, right? You watch that?
Yep.
Okay, coming soon to the Independent Career Studios YouTube channel. But wasn't Ariana amazing?
She was. I
I
didn't know
know,
you
right?
acted. This is new
She's
to me.
incredible. She was incredible. She was incredible in the film.
Oh,
So speaking
I
of
was
world
like,
class
wait, is
artists,
that Ariana? What?
yeah,
I was surprised. I thought you were behind the camera. You were in front of
she
She
is
does it
a
all.
exactly. She's a
I
multi-talented.
I do whatever Andrew needs me to
Okay.
do.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got a little snot bubble from
See,
laughing so
that's the
hard.
mark of a beginning. Like when you're starting out producing, you know, you're doing whatever needs to be done. You're trying to take care of, you know.
No, I just wanted to give that brief shout out to Ariana because she is an incredible actor. Um,
I love you.
I love you too. Now back to the facts for a moment. It was Eddie Murphy's idea for Jif Ramsey, not Kit Ramsey, but Jif Ramsey to have his braces and for his ears to stick out. That was a really good little touch in terms of the physical characterization, and also in terms of actors' input. Robert Downey Jr., who's in the film, that was a big surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Steve Martin, and their last take at the restaurant. You know how they're at the restaurant, they're having their back and forth.
Yeah.
Frank Oz let them have a take that was where they could just do whatever they wanted within their characters, and that a lot of that ended up in the final film. So that's a good little technique.
And the cord is coming out of his his sleeve, and they're
Yeah,
just watching him, and the whole time he's acting like he's on the phone.
yeah. Hey, can I speak to Kid for a moment? Bad signal.
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
it's
exactly.
going under a tunnel.
Yeah. I absolutely love that scene. I mean, and the fact that Robert Downey Jr. just goes, "Oh, opens nice," flips it to the last page. That's a good catchphrase. Okay.
Yeah.
If you can get Kid, I'll give you money. I'm feeling risky today. Like every producer's dream. Just first and last page, yes. Anything you need.
Well, you know, he said that because he's like, "There's no way this dude's gonna pull this off." You know, I was like, "Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
sure, sure." You know,
Yeah. And he was just, what was
because
that?
you don't hear no a lot in Hollywood. You know, you either get ignored or yeah, yeah, sure, because they're looking at you like you're not going to get anything done. You know, so
Mm.
then I think then the interesting part would be like if you actually did, and then they'd have to go, oh, okay, wait a minute, what did I agree to? But even then,
Right.
you know,
Bowfinger did end up making a healthy profit at the box office, but it did debut second behind another movie, The Sixth Sense.
Oh,
mm,
So that might have been
yeah,
a tough weekend for Bowfinger.
yes,
Yeah. That's a movie we should cover. That's a good one. Tracy,
Yes.
final thoughts on Bowfinger.
Kind of brilliant. I do love Steve Martin's work. LA Story is another one that you guys should cover. He wrote that, and I believe he wrote that, if I'm got my facts right. That's a great story about LA, just the parody and the like all the things that, at least at that time, I believe it was in the 80s that they did that. And then Only Murders in the Building. So he's got a really interesting mind, I think, especially for comedy and the kind of quirky things that he does, but very brilliant. So this one, I love that he did a take on the industry and especially the indie world. Because I don't think we see enough of that. We see a lot of A-listers of Hollywood, of the big money and the big budgets and the studios, but you don't see what the indie filmmaker goes through day to day, just trying to get something done. It is such an uphill battle, and you just go through all of these ridiculous things along the way. And there's, like I said, there's a million indie filmmakers in LA and everywhere else in the world, and we all have stories. We have stories for days about these crazy adventures that you go on that are just so and you can see it. I mean, even though it's a comedy, you can see what he's struggling, like his bills aren't paid, he can't get in the door anywhere, he has to basically bullshit his way, just to get anywhere. So it's kind of for as much of a comedy as it is, there's a lot of truth in what you see. So I like that that's highlighted. I like that that's shown in some aspect, and you get to have fun with it because, like I said, it's a comedy. So then you should have fun with it because this is a crazy undertaking to want to be an indie filmmaker. I had a showrunner tell me once, he asked me what I did. I said, I'm a independent producer. And he said, you're brave. And I went, I was like, oh, okay. I was like, yeah, actually, yeah, because this is crazy, so.
What was one of your favorite, like playful commentaries that they pulled off in the movie?
Gosh, there's a lot. The one that killed me was when he said they needed to find a crew and they did what I had no idea. I did not expect this. The first time I saw this, I went, "Oh my God," when they went to the border, and I'm just oh my God. But the coolest thing was, though, by the end of the movie, those guys know all the technical terms. They are the camera team. Like they're, and then they all got cell phones. And it's just, it's that was fun because it's like that's how quickly you can turn things around here, where you can go in knowing nothing and you learn everything on the fly and suddenly you're working a lot, or if you're fortunate enough, so I thought that was fun. I love their little arc in the story where they were just these, like now they're these like skilled filmmakers.
That was beautiful too. I love, I think it speaks a lot to Steve Martin's writing, is the fact that you can accomplish that whole understanding with one line. I mean, one line and a little bit, like 2 moments of visual storytelling. I mean, when they first show up, they're terrified and they don't understand why they're there. And then it just shows them in front of a computer saying one technical line about the camera, and it's like you understand the whole concept and you feel it, which is so awesome. That's so hard to accomplish, I feel like, in a script, and then pairing it, like being able to do it as a director. You get to feel all these fun things, and it's so simple and it's so direct. And I just yeah, you're right. He's talented.
So, Tracy, I do have two more questions for you.
Yeah.
Where can people follow you, and what do you have to promote?
I do have an Instagram. It's Trace Cash. It's TraceKash. And my production company is Red Siren Entertainment, also on all of the social media. It's Red Siren ENT, all one word. So you can follow us there. We've got a lot in the works right now. There's a lot of projects that we're packaging and developing and stuff. So yeah, keep an eye out. We're looking to do all the financing and attaching the actors and everything. That's what we're currently doing.
Oh, by the way, I'll make sure to include those in the show notes.
Oh,
If you're willing to send me those links, that'd be
sure,
super helpful.
absolutely.
Tracy, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you having me on.
Listeners, if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions for future episodes, feel free to shoot us an email at independentcareerstudios@gmail.com. If you like that episode, feel free to write a review and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, or YouTube. We'd love to hear your feedback. Behind the Flicks was created by myself and Arianna. I edited this episode. My name is Aaron Gentile. This has been an Independent Career Studios production.